What is going on, guys? Welcome back. Jimmy Smith, a little burp in the beginning, gotta love it. But listen, Jimmy, I feel like they took all the prelim openers, right? And they jammed them onto a main card. This has got to be, what are they referring to this as? UFC on ESPN? This should be UFC Ultimate Sleeper Card. I know it's on a Wednesday, but man, I look through these fights and every single one of them has the potential to be a fight of the night.
A lot of bangers. And also the main event, which we'll get into in a minute. I think Calvin Kattar's knockout over Jeremy Stephens, if we hadn't had so many great knockouts in the first half of this year, it just would be bigger in people's minds. I thought it was a beautiful elbow, great shot against a veteran guy, caught him coming in, beautiful stuff. So each one of these fights has the potential to be fight of the night.
Well, let's start off. Catchweight fight, 174 pounds. I literally just read this. Listen, it was going to be an uphill battle for Laziz to begin with. He's a decent kickboxer, likes to brawl. This is not the time to brawl, though, dude. 9-1. Yeah, he's got some decent opponents on his record, but the UFC does this every once in a while. You'll get the up and coming guy versus kind of the veteran guy. In this one, man, and it's hard to really talk about. We all know why Abdullah Hassan has not fought, okay? And to me, when you go back and look at what he did, this guy has power like you would not believe. Hooks, overhands, great accuracy. The reality is this guy was already tracking to be ranked and a star in the UFC. He went through some personal things that no man should ever have to go through. He came out on the other end 100%. I listened to some interviews with him this week. He seems mentally tough, focused, and ready to go. I don't see how he loses this fight. Coming in a little bit overweight, it's just, another notch in Laziz having to get past this. And usually fighters that come in heavy have a good tendency to win. And I was pretty much all aboard the Alassane train before this started.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a judo background, which is kind of funny because, yeah, he does have takedowns. He does have good base and balance and all those things, but he just bangs. He just throws with incredible power. Last time Nico Price got a quick finish against him. The only X factors and the issue you're talking about, it's funny you hint stuff and actually talk about it. He had a rape charge against him, was found not guilty, but that just took him away from fight. I think it's been about 22 months. And that long layoff, the stress, the difficulty of training under COVID circumstances, which is not easy, all those X factors are, and then not making weight, all those X factors are kind of question marks. I don't think there'll be distractions once the bell actually rings, just because this guy has a simple style. He's a power puncher, good hooks. You talked about his accuracy, and he puts everything behind every punch. This is not a guy who, man, he has a really strange timing and game plan, and man, without a proper camp. No, he just doesn't really fight that way. So he's a power puncher with UFC experience. I think it's too much right now for the newcomer at 9-1.
Since you mentioned that, we just probably had the 251 update. Did you watch the full card for UFC 251?
The prelims and everything?
Yes.
No, I had to. I worked all day doing pre and post stuff for SiriusXM and all this stuff. So I basically had to do the pre-fight show, do everything I had to do, meaning for my house and eat and all that stuff, and then get back just in time to finish the main card. So I was only able to watch the main card.
I didn't know if you watched the Volkan Oezdemir fight because you were talking about like strange styles and just the way that fight went. Was go back and rewatch. That's your homework, Jimmy Smith. Go back and watch that one.
I will for sure. I caught the highlights of it. I didn't see the whole fight.
Very interesting fight to watch. So moving forward, little detour. Women's flyweight division, Molly McCann versus Santos. Santos, she kind of breaks the mold with her power. We talked about her before as well. 10 knockouts in 16 fights. You don't see that a lot in this division. But she has a textbook jab, does really good job with her striking. And, I think Molly McCann is going to be that girl that wants to stand there and trade. And she's got good movement to do that. She also works the body relatively well. This is one of the toughest fights to call, I think, personally, on this card. I'm going to go with Molly McCann just because I felt like going with Molly McCann. I don't really have a good reason as to why.
I'll give you a good reason. You ready?
Go.
Actual UFC experience. Now, she hasn't beaten the best names in the world, right? But she has actual UFC experience and has had success under the big lights. And I think that's important. Santos, remember, coming to her last fight, she was 15-0. Oh my God, this incredible streak, this incredible, addition to the weight class. And what happens in the Barella fight? She has a flat performance, loses a split decision. And by the way, that's Barella's only win in her last 5 fights. So she didn't run into a great fighter. She had a flat performance. And we've seen that a million times when someone comes in with a great record, but, not a lot of great talent, not a lot of big fight experience, and they just have that road bump. Molly McCann, tactically, she's a step forward and throw kind of fighter. Pretty basic with her footwork, but she has confidence in her power and she has confidence in her ability to get it done in the UFC. So if you're going to pick Molly McCann, which I do as well, to me, it's based on that experience level. She's just had more success at the UFC level. We talked about this in the last fight. Fighters come in, it's the up-and-comer versus the more, not super established, but more established veteran. Most of the time, I go with the more established veteran if they're on a streak. She's had 3 in a row, McCann, in the UFC. Santos is still finding her legs. That's why I go with McCann.
Well, we move up the card. Jimmy Rivera, Cody Stamann. This is an incredible fight. If you look back at what this fight has built to, of course, we all know Cody loses his brother, gets this huge emotional win over Brian Kelleher, and he's just a solid fighter, man. He puts together his combos so well, mixes in takedowns. He's actually, if you look at him, he is so built for this weight class. And on the other side, Jimmy Rivera, he's just been coming off either fighting the best or the next guy in the division for a very long time. And really, apart from just physical size, I think they're actually very close. I really do like the defense and the boxing of Rivera. I know people kind of been a little down on it, and they both have high-level experience. This to me is a really, again, a pick'em fight, a close fight. I hate to say this, but man, I think if you look at what Cody's went through, he's due for an emotional downturn, right? I can't even begin to relate to what he went through in his last fight, and now he kind of gets a quick turnaround. And I feel like that's just going to have to factor into this a little bit. And I'm going to go with Jimmy Rivera to win this one.
Yeah, I do too, just because this is really might be the closest fight on paper on the card. And I think these are mostly competitive matchups, but man, they're both so stocky. They both decent wrestlers, but I would say that obviously I would say Stamann's the better wrestler, Jimmy Rivera the better striker, but I think Jimmy Rivera does enough to keep this fight on the feet. Also, the guy is just an absolute tank. It's very hard to get underneath him to get your takedown going. I think that's going to be the difference. Now, of course, Jimmy Rivera, I think, has fought better talent, but has fallen short against Peter Yan, right? Fell short against Aljamain Sterling, Marlon Moraes. No shame in those. Those 3 of the best in the world at 135 pounds, but still has lost 3 out of his last 4 fights. I think, as you said, it's time for that turnaround performance, not just a down for Cody Stamann, but a chance for Jimmy Rivera to get back on track. And I think Jimmy Rivera has a better chance of stopping the takedown than Stamann has a chance of stopping the striking. So I give a slight edge to Jimmy Rivera, but it's going to be a very close fight.
It's interesting you say that, because when I looked at this, I really thought Jimmy Rivera was where Cody was 3 years ago. He was coming off the win against Uriah Faber, had the win over Almeida, kind of had that setback to Marlon Moraes. It's like they really were almost at the same, gaining steam. And now, I mean, it's a really good. I don't really honestly know how this is not the co-main event, but I don't make the fights. We just talk about them, right? So Tim Elliott, Ryan Benoit. Benoit is a really good fighter, but man, he's kind of becoming one of those guys where it's funny. We've done so many shows now. When I look at fighters, I think of what would Jimmy say about this guy? And he's that guy that's hard to trust, man. He's not putting in consistent performances. We're getting back and forth on these wins. And, here's the thing. I feel like he needs to stay outside, mix in his punches well, but Tim Elliott is not going to fall for that game. And he's seen his stock fall quite a bit the past few years. And I think basically what this is going to boil down to is, can Tim Elliott get that ground and pound, get those takedowns? Is it going to be the outside striking of Elliott and of Benoit enough? And I just don't think it's going to be. I think it is going to be interesting to see how Benoit plays this, but I feel like he's not going to be able to control the distance with a veteran guy. And I think Elliott's going to have just enough to win this on points. I don't see this being a stoppage. I kind of see it being one of those labor-intensive fights where Elliott's going to do a lot of ground control and a lot of shoots, and probably not going to be the most exciting performance. I would say of all the fights on the card, this one is the only one that kind of seems to be a step back.
Yeah, I don't know why this one is co-main event. The issue to me is the consistency. Benoit hasn't won back-to-back fights in 8 years. That is stunning. Since entering the UFC, it's literally win one, lose one. The highlight of his career was a win over Sergio Pettis. Okay, that's nice, but hasn't been able to follow up on that. Hasn't been able to get any momentum in the division. Tim Elliott, if you remember his fight against Demetrius Johnson, that was an incredible fight. He gave him one of the toughest fights of his career. That's saying a lot, again, when you're up against one of the greatest of all time. But he's lost his last 3 in a row, albeit one of those to Figueiredo, who's fighting for the title, hopefully, if he makes weight. So I would give the edge to Tim Elliott slightly, simply because he's looked better a bit more consistently, but both of these guys have had trouble putting it together. That's been the issue. And I would say I'm going with the ground fighter. I'm going with a guy who is able to stay out of trouble on the feet. And it should be a submission for Tim Elliott or ground and pound. That's what he needs to do, is get this fight to the ground. I think he's going to have more opportunities to do that than when Benoit's going to have ability to knock him out.
Yeah, but I'm right there with you. Like, co-main event? I mean, they're not... You can't trust one of the... It's nothing against either one of these guys, but you can't trust them to be built upon on this win, and you're certainly not going to catapult them in the division. It just seemed like a really weird... I don't know. Maybe it's the calm before the storm, but I think it's going to be maybe too much of a calm before the storm. So the storm being Calvin Kattar, Dan Ige. Oh, man. I don't care what you think about the Barbosa fight. We kind of went back and forth on it, but regardless, he's at 5 in a row. Decent movement, fair boxing, but wants to stand in front of you and trade. It might not have the greatest speed, but he does mix his punches up well. Does really good job at following up. And, when you talked about the Jeremy Stephens fight, that was such a big knockout and such a big moment for him. And I think he moves a little bit better. I think we saw that in that fight. He really fights well behind his jab, plenty of power as well. I just don't, in looking at this, it's just like they clash a little bit in their styles. And it makes me wonder just a bit if we're going to see this fight slow down. And I feel like if it slows down, it's probably going to go more toward Dan Ige's way. It could very easily be Calvin Kattar using that movement and really piecing him up. But I just think Dan Ige is going to be able to stand in there, hold ground, and slow this fight down a little bit, and I'm going to give him the win.
Really? That's interesting. That's an upset pick. I'm really amazed Calvin Kattar took this fight. That's one thing, is this is a guy coming off the win over Jeremy Stephens, big name, very popular guy, was an exciting fight, it was a highlight reel knockout, and then he takes on a guy rated below him, where a loss really sets him back. A win just kind of keeps him where he is. It doesn't launch him that far ahead. Sure, he's not in contender status yet, but he's right at the edge of that. And Dan Ige is a dangerous fighter for every reason you just said. Real hand speed, good accuracy. I like the way he brings physical pressure. He likes to step forward a lot. But I think Calvin Kattar just has more technical and tactical tools. And one of the fights that really impressed me and kind of put him on my radar was the Shane Burgos fight. That guy's a great boxer, really nice hands, real power, a lot of confidence, has a pressure game. And what happened? Calvin Kattar just wore him down and finished him in the 3rd round, but stayed versatile, good movement, good angles. I like his kicks, his elbows, his combinations are sharp. I think he has enough tactical tools to frustrate Ige when he needs to. Now, Ige is a great pocket puncher, meaning once he gets inside your kicks, he's good when he can throw combinations. But I think Calvin Kattar can do a little bit more to not be standing there when he starts getting those power punches off. Also, good kicks from the outside, good elbows on the inside. So he's dangerous at more ranges than Dan Ige. Dan Ige is a great puncher. I think Calvin Kattar is an excellent kicker with good movement. He has excellent elbows and a good puncher in his own right. I think he's just a little too much tactically. And this is, I don't want to say a must win for Calvin Kattar. He could recover from losing to Dan Ige, but with the momentum he's had, losing to Ige would be a big stop for him. It would be a big stall in his momentum, and I don't think he can afford that right now. So I would say Calvin Kattar comes in. I think it's an excellent fight. Calvin Kattar wins it late.
Yeah, I mean, we pretty much see it the same way, just different results. I just worry about the confidence. And like you said, why would he take this fight? It literally is. If he drops this, he's got to put together 2 wins to get back to where he was. So I don't know if the Jeremy Stevens fight kind of pumped him up a little bit, but I'll tell you, if you think you can stand in front of Jeremy Stevens today and take that and feel like you can go against anybody, Dan Ige is not the guy that you want to say, okay, well, I just stood in front of Jeremy Stevens. I can take this. And I think I really do feel like somehow that's going to factor into this. I'm with you, though. The movement, everything, really does side in terms of Calvin Kattar. It's just, to me, mentally, it's such a and to his credit, a lot of fighters would have said, listen, I'm not taking a step back. He's not going to, become, I'm not going to be a notch in his belt for this. And, I think Dan Ige just checks a lot of boxes, but it really is. I mean, for a midweek card, it is a really well put together card from top to bottom. I mean, you got some big names on the prelims too. I don't know. Jimmy might watch the prelims. Depends. He's got to repaint a fence or something, right?
Depends on how much I have to do. But here's one thing I want to say mentally. I do believe Calvin Kattar has all the tactical advantages, or a lot of tactical advantages of this fight. But he could get caught. He has got to kind of walk a fine line. If he underestimates Dan Ige, it's going to be a bad night for him. And if he tries to make an example out of Dan Ige, it's going to be a long night for him. Do you know what I'm saying? If he walks in there and thinks, I've got this guy, he's in trouble. If he goes out there and thinks, I'm going to knock this guy out, right? I'm going to, because he's on the bubble right now of contendership. He couldn't really get a title fight right now. A couple more wins and he might be in that conversation. So he might be thinking, man, I want that highlight reel knockout that's going to make people remember me. I just wasted Jeremy Stevens. I got to go in there and don't do that. Don't go in there and think, I can do anything to this guy. And also don't think, I'm going to knock him out easily. Even if he's piecing him up, if he goes in there and tries to get aggressive and get that highlight reel knockout, Ige is going to be dangerous for him. So he's got to kind of mentally stay right in that center. I think he can do that.
I feel like you might be going against your pick. I mean, like, you're almost selling me Dan Ige after I told you I feel like he's going to win for those very reasons.
I just, I think he has all the tactical skills to win, and that's what I'm going with. But mentally, he's got to stay out of these traps, and they're big ones.
I agree. We will see what happens, and we will be here to break it down when it is all over. We appreciate you guys checking this out, and we will be back very shortly with more commentary.